Hello, I'm Robert Johnson. I'm the location pastor at the Leawood location of Church of the Resurrection. I'm back with you for episode 2 of Resurrection Stories, through which we hope to expose you to some of the amazing people, staff, and congregation who are part of our church family. And we hope that by exposing them to you, that you will deepen your own faith and maybe even consider coming to experience for yourself what's going on here at Resurrection. As we do these podcasts, we'd like for you to share them, so you can go to core.org/podcast and you can find the link, and we encourage you to share that in whatever ways you share podcast links, media links. Share the link to this podcast and invite others to listen in. We have an amazing person with us today. She's been a part of Resurrection for a good while now and does amazing work, and we're glad to have her on. Her name is Pastor Cheryl Jefferson Bell, and we're delighted to have her. Welcome to the podcast, Cheryl. How are you
Thank
today?
you. I'm doing great. Glad to be here.
Thank you so much for braving to be on the front end.
Okay, here we are.
For being on the front end of this experience. But before we get into your presence at Resurrection, tell folks about your journey through the Great Plains Conference, the ministry candidacy process, and then tell us how you got to Resurrection.
Okay. At first, I am a fourth generation in the Methodist tradition. And so I've had great-grandfather that's have a Baptist great-great-grandfather and a Methodist great-father. And they were active, and so I feel like that calling kind of came through. But before I did that, I was an engineer, electrical engineer for 10 years before accepting and receiving the calling to go into ministry full-time. My home church, when we moved to Kansas, is St. Mark in Wichita, which you know about. And it was when I was looking for a Black United Methodist church. There was only one. How about that? And so that landed us there.
It happened to be a great one.
It was a wonderful one. It was the right one for us. And so through participation in that congregation, received my calling, quit Boeing. I was working at Boeing at the time. And then attended and graduated from Phillips Seminary when it was in Enid, Oklahoma. And then I served on staff at St. Mark for a couple of years before getting moved to Pretty Prairie in Murdock, Kansas. And it was an adventure and a great appointment there. It was cross-cultural, cross-racial, cross-everything, but it was good. Yeah. It was good. And so I served there. I also served as executive director of United Methodist Urban Ministry, which is United Methodist Open Door now, the predecessor to that organization. Then I went on the cabinet, became a district superintendent. I did that for 8 years. And that was an adventure, Lord have mercy. And then after that, moved to Newton, Kansas, and was senior pastor at Trinity Heights for 3 years. And then when that appointment ended, I ended up here at Resurrection. And I am currently in my 11th year here at Resurrection, longest appointment serving anywhere. And it has really been a blessing.
It is a blessing to be here. I know when I was coming on, of course, I was exploring with staff, like, what should I expect here? And you assured me that I was going to enjoy my time here. And I will tell you that every positive thing you said is what I've experienced. It's a joy to be here for a multitude of reasons. But Cheryl, tell us, I know, before we get into what you're doing now, you had a different role at Resurrection, I believe. So
I was congregational care. I was in congregational care for almost 8 years. And I was connected with what was the Saturday evening and Sunday evening services. And that was the way we kind of divided the congregation up. And so I counted myself as a nighttime pastor because I had the 5 o'clock services. And so our job was to provide congregational care, care for those that attended those services on a regular basis. So, it was something. Amen. It was something. And I also sung with Resonate, a choir that kind of came out of that that time of worship. So, yeah, we spent some good times together. Good times.
Hey, Justin Schoolcraft, who's also a part of our staff, tells this amazing story. I share with me that you were called the singing pastor, that you show up in people's hospital rooms and pray for them as we all do, but that you would also sing over people. And, the other thing that he told me that was just so says so much about who you are as a person as well as a pastor is that Justin says you would stay there for as long as the family wanted you to stay there. Sometimes we go in and we kind of get things settled, and then once we think that the family's okay, we'll take that shootout. But that you would stay there for as long as the family. Where'd that kind of compassion? That has to come from. Does that come from personal experience or just deep conviction about your calling? To visit people in the hospital and sing and then stay there for as long as they want you to stay.
I am one of my gifts is empathy, and I feel like I have a sense of, and I hope I'm right most of the time instead of dwelling too long, but I have a sense of when what folks' needs are like at the moment, or what I feel like maybe what my need would be in that circumstance if they're not verbalizing it. And so, and then the singing, I did it a lot of times, not every time, but if it just seemed appropriate at the time, I would offer up a song. And that was something that was reinforced when I was at St. Mark and the ministry. It just that was just part of what we, did. So I carried that with me.
Well, you have a beautiful voice.
Thank you.
Got a chance to hear that. You preached just recently. By the way, my mom, just yesterday, my mom and I were having a conversation, and she basically tried to go point for point back over your sermon.
Really?
I was like, Mom, I heard it. I got it. Yeah, she was absolutely wonderful. And she says, and then she did this song, and I was like, Mom, I got it. But she enjoyed your so much. So I wanted to share that with you.
Thank you.
So I want to get into what you do now. Before we do that, I want to just pause and just ask you a fun question, so people can maybe see a different side of you. By the way, I think you are so mature, and I don't know where I learned this language, where I learned this concept. I think maybe Rhonda Kingwood at St. Mark was the first person I heard use this phrase about being a non-anxious presence around people, that people can. And I just want to tell you that is so who you are, just a non-anxious presence. And I think all the staff, that's why we all love you and celebrate you and just trust you, because you walk in the room, you come into a meeting, come into a conversation. So I want to thank you for that, for being that.
Thank you.
But what's your favorite movie?
Movie? Whoosh! Okay, movie. What is my favorite movie? I enjoy them, but wow, that's a hard one. I think it's that's a hard one, Robert. One of my favorites is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I recognize, I'll say, myself and my grandkids in there. So, but I like that movie, and I'm sure after this is over with, I'll come up with others, but I'll choose that one for now.
Yeah. So when you do movies, do you do comedy, drama? What do you tend to like?
I like kind of like dramas. I don't like heavy. I absolutely hate horror movies. I don't do those. I had a traumatic experience when I was 2 or 3, and ever since I was like, I don't want any of those. No, none, no more. No more. Yeah.
So let's go to your faith story. And so this podcast is called Resurrection Stories. And, I know you and I both know that all of our stories are different. Some stories are a little more dramatic than others, but that if we're on a faith walk, that God's at work through grace, bringing us closer into his bosom, into his presence. And so, take about 5 minutes and share with folks your faith story, focusing on what was the turning point, what was the defining moment in that journey for you.
As I said earlier, I grew up in a Methodist family. Going to church was something we were going to do. And my father divorced, my parents divorced when I was 3. And so we ended up custody with my father. My brother and I were with my father, and he ended up moving, and we ended up moving in with his cousin, who I call Auntie, but she was like a mother to me. And so following in her footsteps, she was a churchgoer. My grandmother was a churchgoer. My other aunts were that's what we did. And so being surrounded by that was really my foundation. The church became my spiritual home. The church became my safe place. The church was where I could be who I believe God called me to be, and I would be accepted and loved for who I am as I am. Even if outside of the church it was different, in the church is where, I would have my affirmation of who I am. And so that has always been like that grounding for me, regardless of where I was in school, not being as religious as I should have been when I was in college, and but the church was a place that I always came back to. Even after I graduated from college, my first job was with Mobil Oil in Dallas, Texas, and I knew I needed to find a church home then, and so I found Hamilton Park. When I was there, Kirby John was there when he was an associate there. Right. Cynthia Wilson was there. Henry Masters was the pastor. And so I found Black United Methodist Church. That's what I was looking for.
Amazing people came.
Oh, amazing. Just amazing. And it was there where my faith really got grounded there. And so I just continued, to grow from there. But the pivotal point for me was when I went through confirmation, and at Conant Avenue in Detroit is where I grew up in Detroit. And Conant Avenue was our home church. My Uncle Alec, who was one of 3 Tuskegee Airmen that are part of my family. And it was...
That's something I bet a lot of folks don't know. That's pretty...
Yeah. So he was Tuskegee Airman. He passed last year at 100. And I was able to do his service. But my father...
Where was he living?
He was in Detroit. Okay. He living in Detroit. And so my father, who did a great job making sure we were taken care of, would drop us off at church. And it would be at Uncle Alec's church. And so, but it was that church where I did my confirmation. And when Pastor Bishop laid his hands on me and did that blessing, I felt like God's Spirit just kind of filled me at that point. I didn't fully understand it at that point, but I knew something had happened. Yeah. And so that was one of those pivotal points in my life that I, think about looking back on, like, that was it. That was the real thing. Wow. So
what a great story. Resurrection has such a great confirmation process here for our students, for 11-year-olds.
They are...
6th graders.
Yeah,
eighth graders.
8th grader. I think 8th grader. I think they're 6th, 7th, 8th. One middle school. Yeah, middle school. Yeah,
that's such a great process. And so it was great. So great that you share that, so folks can hear that, parents can hear that, and know how. I think sometimes people think that you got to wait until you're an adult and you have some knockdown, drag out experience to really awaken, become conscious of the grace of God. But that grace of God we can experience that as kids.
That's right.
And just kind of become curious about it and walk in it and live in it. Of course, we're not going to be perfect all of our lives.
Oh, no.
And we grow
going on to perfection, as Wesley says. We're moving on to perfection.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Absolutely. So tell us what you're doing now at Resurrection. Tell us the work you're doing now that I think is so important. And I think it, as a matter of fact, as a leader into it, it's part of for me, what defines Resurrection, that I think we're evangelical. We believe in following Jesus, and the primary elements of faith and what that means, but also living that out in not in just our personal morality, but living that out in the world.
Right. I am so fortunate to be serving as pastor of community justice, and it is a social justice position. And this is part of the vision Resurrection had in our Vision 2030, and it's to help with the gap of filling the justice and kindness gap. And so within that plan, there was the desire to have someone to work that area, to be connected in particular to justice ministry. And this happened like 3 years ago. And we applied for it. It wasn't like, okay, I think you're going to be the one. There was applications that were received. And I was I was hoping, but, surprised, that I was able to get to receive that position. And I learned since I've been in this, it's been 3 years, that Resurrection was already doing justice work. It was just a matter of elevating that and identifying and then looking and seeing where else can we get involved as a congregation. Mm-hmm. The interesting thing was that I was supposed to start my position like July 1st of 2020. But March 25th was when George Floyd was killed. Yeah. And when he was murdered, and as we all saw what happened, Resurrection felt like we needed to say something. Folks were, we just felt compelled to say something. So that's when we developed our vision for racial justice. And we did that. We ticked off some people, but we knew that would happen. Yeah, we knew that would happen. But it became a statement that we made as a congregation, that this is who we are and where we stand. And so I started my position early. And from there, just as I said, we're involved with Allies for Racial Justice, also Good Faith Network. We have civic engagement, our LGBTQ Ministry, our Queer Inclusive Collective, and then also I keep forgetting the third one. EarthCOR, our creation care ministry.
It is amazing stuff, and for you to be to lead that for Resurrection, like you said, Resurrection was already doing it, but then to appoint a staff person to lead that work. And I will tell you that last visioning process you all went through, and then to close what did you call? How did you say
the justice and kindness gap?
Closing that gap, as Linda and I were praying about. So we wanted to come to Resurrection, but then we were digging, researching. We got a copy of that visioning brochure, and when we read that. As a matter of fact, we were doing a road trip. We were on our way to Nashville, and we read that, and we were like, we want this to happen. Like, this is where we want to be. Yeah. This is where we want to be. So to be here and to see you doing that work, and it is amazing work. Since I've been here, I've seen you lead us in Allies for Racial Justice. We did a study on MLK. That was fabulous.
Strength to Love.
Strength to Love, yes. So Cheryl, what's the best thing about Resurrection to you?
The people. Yeah. The people. This is such a caring, generous, loving, justice-seeking, neighbor-loving congregation. And I have really felt received, accepted, loved, by this congregation. It's amazing. And a side note, Pastor Adam is the real deal.
Real deal.
I think Pastor Adam is the real deal, and I love him and his family, and he has been diligent in making sure that Resurrection is a church that God has called him to develop.
I so agree. The real deal. And of course, you and I both, we're too seasoned. I'm not going to say we're older. We're seasoned.
Seasoned. I'll receive that. Amen.
We're too seasoned to be naive.
Yeah.
But this place and Pastor Adam are the real deal, and it's great to be here. Final question: I know both of you and I are both thinking about legacy, what we want to leave behind for our church family, for our kids, grandkids, whatever. How are you thinking about your legacy?
That when people think about me, that they have felt loved and accepted for who they are, and as they are, as God has done for me. That's my ultimate hope.
Cheryl, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I love you and respect you so much, and it's been an amazing conversation. Folks, thank you all for tuning in today. And again, we encourage you to share the link to this podcast. You can go to core.org/podcast and find the link, and want you to share it on your social media outlets. And in whatever ways you share social media information, please share the information about this podcast, and we look forward to seeing you back with us. We also want to encourage you to come and visit Resurrection. We hope you've been inspired by Cheryl's story. We have worship services every weekend and lots of activities. There's stuff going on here every day of the week, from recovery groups, small groups, lots of ways to get involved and build your faith. We hope you've been inspired to deepen your faith with Jesus Christ, and we also hope you've been inspired to come and visit with us and check us out. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time.